So why do habits matter? Why are we even talking about this? What's wrong if I've spent a little time here? What's wrong with, a bit of this, bit of that? It's part of my age. I'll get better in time. It's just, I've got to have fun, right? We got to have some fun. We got to lose some steam and all of that. In a sense, yes. We need to have fun. God definitely allows us to have legitimate fun. But what we're talking about here, and even as I speak to myself, we need to really check what are we investing our time in. And why do habits matter? Let me give you 4 principles, the very popular, very common principles that we all know. Number 1, it's to know that if we sow, we will reap. If we sow in the sense of investing time. Sow in the sense of devoting time and resources to a habit which is not helpful. So if you sow your time into wasting time into gaming and you're wasting your time on a certain habit, you will reap whatever comes from that. If you're wasting 3 to 4 hours a day on social media, you will reap its consequences. I will reap its consequences. If I'm sowing my time into something that is harmful for my family relationship, I will reap the consequences. Similarly, if I sow my time into something that is beneficial, be it learning the Bible, learning a musical instrument, learning something that is beneficial, maybe a new language, if I sow my time into something that is beneficial, I will reap it. And that's the principle of sowing. Secondly, we sow exactly what we reap. If you sow into sexually immoral stuff, we will reap the consequences exactly in that area. That's something all of us are aware of. If you sow into wastage of time on gaming and addiction, then we will exactly reap consequences in that area. On the positive side, if you sow your time into guitar, you will become an expert in guitar. That's just how it is. If you sow your time into public speaking, you will become a public speaker. What we sow, we reap. I'm sorry, I just got it wrong. We reap exactly what we sow. We reap exactly what we sow. We reap exactly what we sow. Number 3, we will reap more than what we sow. We will reap more than what we sow. So, and this is just the principle of agriculture. And same with addictions. If we are spending time in interacting with strangers, or if you are spending time in browsing sexually charged content, if you are spending time reading things that are definitely not beneficial for you, if you're spending time in manga and anime movies, if you're spending time in K-pop drama and K-drama and K-pop, if you are spending time in absolute nonsense on the internet, you will reap much more in consequences than that. And it will affect other areas of your life, be it your academics, be it the way you deal with people, the way your confidence, your self-esteem. I do career guidance. I sit with students, class 12 and class 10. I speak to a lot of them. We do one-on-one sessions, and some of the things that came to light in the last 2 years. And those who have been introverts, there are some who are introverts, our personality. In the last 2 years, because of these addictions, some of them got into really things on the internet, and they've become even more introvert. They would probably speak to like 5 people in a week. Now they don't even speak to one. They've even gone more into a shell. We will reap more than what we sow. And that's just true for every one of us. And finally, we will reap in a different season than when we sow. So maybe the consequences are not immediate. And that's something that, I've learned from my own addictions, from my own struggle with sin. There's a season in my life where I was so into some of these things, and it was not in that season that the impact happened. The consequences happened. It happened much later in marriage, closer to marriage, and in my relationships when I moved out of my parents' house and I started to talk with people. That's when I saw some of the consequences of the sin and the addiction that I had in my past bearing fruit in a very bad way. We will reap in a different season than when we sow. So With addictions, I think that's a good reminder for us. If we sow, we will reap. If we invest time in anything that is harmful, we will reap the consequences, whether we like it or not, and we will reap exactly what we sow. We will reap more than what we sow, and we will reap in a different season than when we sow. And so, just think about your own life as I think about mine. What are some of the impacts that you're having right now because of some of the habits you had a few years back? That's one question to think. What are some of the impacts I'm having as a 30-year-old because some of the wrong choices and decisions I took as an 18-year-old? Some of the addictions I had in my 20s, how is it affecting me in my 30s? Or some of the addictions I had in 15, how is it affecting me in 18? Also think about this. Right now, I know for sure that this is some habit that I have, which is an addiction, which is not fruitful. Be it on the time you spend on the internet, find interactions you have on the internet, the kind of content that you consume, the kind of filth that we are so used to. How is that going to impact the future self? Of course, right now I don't see any. It's just a movie, just a web series. Just fine. But how is it going to impact shape my thinking into the future? Two things to think about. What are some of the things I do right now, which is a result of my past? And what are some things that I'm doing right now that will impact my future? Think about the sowing principle. What you sow, we will reap. What you sow, exactly the same thing. If you sow, you'll reap exactly what you reap. More than you reap in a different season, you will reap.